Here's the thing, making videos about housing on YouTube isn't the hidden niche it was a year ago. Back then, when prices were at all-time highs and appreciation looked endless, only a few channels were pointing out what was quietly happening in places like Texas and Florida. Today, it's everywhere. The New York Times, CNBC, CNN, the story of the housing downturn has gone mainstream. What was considered absurd just a year ago, the idea of a crash, is now accepted reality in many southern markets where prices have already fallen 15, 20, and even 30%. Nobody is surprised about the Florida and Texas markets, but what people should be watching now is what happens next. If you think this is the worst case scenario, the data we are going to show today suggests that we are in the early innings, and this crash that started in the South will soon spread elsewhere. But before we start, let's go back to Florida for a moment. Just to show how absurd things have gotten, some Florida neighborhoods are already at full-blown '08 levels. Take Venice. This home was bought in 2019 for $206,000. By the summer of 2022, it had exploded to $400,000. Since then, straight off a cliff. Today, it's worth about $264,000. That's a 34% drop. That isn't a warning sign. That isn't maybe a crash is coming. That is the crash. So what about the rest of the country? A few markets are starting to look exactly like Florida did a year ago. One of the biggest is Tennessee. At first glance, official price data makes Nashville look steady. Prices spiked in 2022, then flattened, and on the surface, they have mostly held. But underneath, the warning light in real estate inventory is flashing red. Nashville went from about 1,500 active listings at the low point to more than 11,000 today. That's a 633% increase in just 3 years, the highest on record since Realtor.com began tracking in 2016. And it's still climbing with no slowdown in sight. But here's the part almost no one is talking about. It's not about how many homes are being listed, it's how many are being pulled. Nashville and the rest of the country is seeing a surge in withdrawals, sellers taking their homes off the market because they can't get the price they want. When withdrawal rates spike, it's a clear sign that sellers are capitulating, and that usually means the pressure on prices is only getting started. And right now, the withdrawal rate is absurd. Take a look at this Compass video broken down by Dave Crosby showing just how much of a problem this really is.
The second data point we're going to look at to talk about inventory and what's going on with inventory is a new metric that Mike introduced a few weeks ago. And we've been watching this closely. It's called the seller withdrawal ratio. And this is looking at the number of listings that are withdrawing from the market as a ratio of new listings that are coming into the market. And as you can see, this ratio is trending significantly higher than prior years of 2024 and 2023. What we think this is telling us, what we think this indicates, is that this year, a much higher percentage of sellers are choosing to leave the market and wait for more favorable conditions. Based on this latest week of data, we estimate that withdrawals in August of 2025 will be between 45 and 50% of new listings, a ratio that we typically don't see until the end of the year when sellers are pulling their listings off the market for the holidays. And unlike the changes that we see in inventory and new listings, which are asymmetrical across the country, we are observing a near universal trend in higher withdrawal rates across the United States.
As Dave just mentioned, the withdrawal rate is now approaching 50%. That means half of all listings are being pulled from the market unsold. And here's the problem. When a seller withdraws, their true price point never shows up in the real sales data. Only the best homes, the ones that actually sell, get recorded. That skews the median price upwards and masks how much damage is really happening. Sellers might think they're waiting for better conditions, but the reality is conditions are only getting worse. And you can see that in the demand side too. Pending sales, the contracts that actually measure buyer activity, are collapsing. When withdrawals spike and pending sales drop at the same time, that's the perfect storm. Too many sellers giving up and too few buyers stepping in. Just take a look at the latest data since 2023. Pending sales have been hovering near all-time lows, a direct reflection of collapsing demand. Even in 2008, during the worst of the financial crises, this measure was stronger. Right now, it's a ticking time bomb. The official numbers aren't fully capturing the damage, and where this is headed next could be far worse than most people realize. And it's not just the charts showing this. CNBC recently reported that pending home sales have dropped to levels we haven't seen in decades, alongside a surge in cancellations. When even mainstream outlets are calling attention to demand collapsing, you know the situation has gone far beyond what the official averages suggest.
David, pending home sales in July dropped 0.4% from June and were 0.7% higher from July of last year, according to the realtors. The street was looking for a tiny gain of 0.3%, so let's just call it even. Now, this count is based on signed contracts, so people out inking deals in July, when the average rate on the 30-year fixed was moving higher. You can see it began falling in August, but that is not reflected in these numbers. Regionally, sales dropped month to month in the Northeast and Midwest. They were flat in the South, and they rose in the West. Interesting, because the West is the most expensive region. Now, again, while rates did drop some in August, just 16% of realtors surveyed said they expect an increase in buyer traffic over the next 3 months. Now, given that these are signed contracts, I also want to note a very recent report from Redfin that found these contracts being canceled at the highest rate since they began tracking this in 2017. 15% of homes that went under contract in July, says Redfin, were canceled. Carl, back to you.
Diana Oleg, thank you very much.
So when you line it all up, surging inventory, skyrocketing withdrawal rates, and pending sales at record lows, it's clear the housing market isn't just slowing, it's already breaking down in front of us. The mainstream headlines are only catching part of the story. The deeper you look, the more obvious it becomes. This isn't a soft landing, it's a system under real stress. Sellers can withdraw, buyers can hold back, but the cracks are widening either way. The only other question left is how long it takes before everyone else finally admits what's already staring us in the face. For anyone who wants to see what this actually looks like on the ground, check out foreclosure.com. I've left the link below. You can see all kinds of distressed properties hitting the market in real time, and it really shows how deep the cracks are becoming. In Florida, foreclosure filings are spreading across condo towers and suburban subdivisions alike, markets that just 2 years ago were hotter than anything in the country. In Texas, you're seeing the same story, rapid growth on the way up, and now a wave of forced sales and withdrawals on the way down. Both states are flashing warning signs in real time, and foreclosure.com makes it clear this isn't isolated, it's systemic, and soon I think it's going to be spreading up north to Tennessee and other states. Thank you guys for watching. As always, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed the video. I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let me know what you're seeing on the ground, whether you're buying or selling in Florida, Texas, Tennessee, or anywhere else these trends are starting to show up.